I'm going to show you how to do steps 24 through 26. 24 says to open the body piece of your fabric so it has the right side up and it's laying flat in front of you. Then it says you're going to line up on your 80-inch piece of webbing, you're going to line up the seam that you just sewed for step 23. You're going to line this up at one of the middle crosses. So I'm going to open up this seam here. Okay, so it was flat. I open it up and I'm going to make it so that the seared edges are going to be flat down on the bag like this. Okay, so I have my seam opened. Okay, I can't see the seared edges. They're underneath my webbing. And the edge of my webbing is going to line up with the line that I drew on my bag. I'm going to take a pin, and this is the first pin I'm going to put in. I make it go down and back up again to keep this one in place. Step 25 says that you're going to match the pin on the opposite end on the opposite cross on the other side of your bag. Okay, so we put a pin in here, and we're going to put this now on the opposite side of the bag. Okay. Now, when we put this over here, before we can pin it down, we want to make sure that it's on there straight. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that the webbing is a racetrack, and I'm going to pretend that my spool of thread here is a race car, and to know if this is going to be straight or not, is I need to make sure that when I'm going up and around the curve, that the race car stays on top of the road. So you see right now, it doesn't. It goes underneath where the webbing is. That means that it's twisted. Okay, so I have to make the webbing so that when the race car goes on here and it goes up and around the curve, it ends up back on top. Okay, all the way around, goes up and around the curve, stays on top. Okay, you don't have to use a spool of thread for this. You can test it by just using your finger to make sure that it goes all the way around. Okay, once you know you have this right, okay, make sure that your pin isn't going to get stuck in here. So I can move this out, and now I can move it so it's on the first side like this. Okay. You can leave your pin in sideways so that you know where your halfway point is, but then make sure that you pin it again to make the webbing so it's stuck to your bag. Step 26 is telling you to then pin all the way up the edges of your webbing so it's going to be laying flat. Okay, I'm going to put pins all the way up, and I'm going to stop where my cross is up at the top of the bag. Okay. So I'm going to start at the middle, okay, and I'm lining up the edge of my webbing with the line that I drew, and I'm going to smooth it out, and I put a pin down and back up again right in the middle. So if this is our racetrack or this is a road, these are the lines that go down the center of the road. Okay, I'm going to take another one to put in here. Okay, and now I'm going to take one right up at the top where this mark is. Okay, this was 3.5 inches from the top. Right where that one is, I'm going to put a pin going sideways so that I know that that's where the top is. Okay, my next steps are going to be sewing, and I'm going to have to know where to turn the corner to sew my webbing on. Okay. Now I'm going to start at the middle and smooth it down the other way, but do the same thing. So I'll take a pin, I'll put down and back up, I'll smooth it out, I'll take another pin, and I'll go down and back up, and then the last one on this side is going to go sideways again, right where my 3.5 inch mark is. Make the pin go sideways, down and back up. Okay, so that the edge of my webbing is lined up with the line all the way down. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Okay. So I put a pin down and back up, making sure that the edge of my webbing is laying flat right against the line that I drew. Now notice when you put the pins in, it's covering up the edges of the pocket. Underneath where your webbing is, there's a raw edge of your pocket that we didn't finish. Okay, we're putting the webbing down so that it covers up that edge. Okay. And I put my webbing down on this side. So I put a pin here, lining up the edge of my webbing to that line I drew, pin. And my last pin is going to go here. It should look even. Your handle should be right even, the same amount. If you have one handle that goes way up above your bag and the other one barely fits over here, you know that it's not centered and that you did something wrong. So you'll have to recheck that you have your center marks were the first ones you did. Okay. Before you can move on to step number 27, where you sew the webbing down, you need to stop and get this checked by the teacher to make sure that everything looks good before you start sewing. And that's 24 through 26.